Rage on that beat, going crazy.
Hello world, it's Grant with G-Fam. Welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of the installment of the coolant reservoir overflow. So we were able to locate the part that I needed, the coolant reservoir overflow. I actually got it at an O'Reilly's in Wyoming while we were boondocking for pretty much half the price that the dealership wanted and Amazon. We're gonna go ahead and install it, and I'm just gonna run you through how to do that repair. And theoretically you could do it on the roadside, because right now, once again, like last video, I was boondocking, and once again I'm boondocking again. So it's very minimal tools, very minimal resources. I will run you through the procedure on how to replace this part and get you on the road and moving in no time. Okay, so here's the part that I got from O'Reilly's. Go ahead and open up the box here. And this is the coolant reservoir overflow. Now I'll show you, like you've seen in the last video, I believed the crack was around this insert that goes onto the hose. In all reality, I learned today while driving that the crack was actually right along this seam. I'm not sure if you can see it in the camera, but the way the thing is molded, it's like 3 different parts or something, and there's like a seam that runs right along here, and it was cracked right about there, and there was a pinhole and it was spraying out. So luckily I was able to have this on hand, this new part, so that way I could drive with some reassurance that I knew eventually I would be able to change that part out. So that's what we're going to go ahead and run through today. Alright, so a quick rundown. The things you will need for this project is a 5/16 wrench. You could use a socket if you'd like, or a ratchet, or even a drill. I don't particularly recommend using a drill on hardware, simply because you could strip it, or you could cross thread the fastener and break things. It's kind of just better to do it with your hands, so that way you could apply the right pressure and not overbear things and strip things out. You will also need a pair of pliers. You choose which size you would like, or some needle nose. It's completely up to you, but those are to pinch the crimps to the hoses, so that way you can slide the hoses off as well.
Alright, so at this point what I have done is I have tried to empty out as much coolant out of the reservoir as possible, and then what I'm going to do is go ahead and disconnect each one of these hoses from the reservoir itself. There should be 3 of them, 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom. And so you just go ahead and use, like I said, your needle nose pliers or your regular pliers. After that, you just go ahead and loosen them by hand and then tuck them out of the way. Alright, and the third one is down here. It's a little tricky, but nevertheless you just give it a little muscle and it'll come out. And don't be surprised if some of the aftermath of the coolant spills out. That is common. Alright, now what you're going to do is take your ratchet and you're going to go ahead and loosen both of these bolts right here. Alright, and now you just want to lightly pull it away. Don't force anything, but just lightly pull it away until you feel it release. And then you're just going to go ahead and set the old part aside. Now the new one's going to go in the same exact position and in the same order, just backwards. So you'll slide it in nice and snug. And you'll notice that there's these little tabs and holes that line up. You want to make sure those are lined up with the hole, so that way you know it's sitting in there snugly. It's basically like a little finger to just hold on to the chassis of the truck, or the body I should say. Alright, and then you're going to go ahead and put these 2 bolts in. I just kind of finger tightened everything at first, so that way I had some playroom with the hoses, so that way I could make sure that everything was where I wanted it to be before I actually tightened it down completely. And I went ahead and crimped both hoses up top first. And then now for the tricky one, down on the bottom. It takes a little bit of time and patience, but nevertheless you'll be able to get it. It's just kind of a tight area, but it's worth not tearing everything apart just to put a hose on. So just take your time and you'll eventually get it. Alright, now I got all 3 hoses hooked up. I'm going to go ahead and tighten the bolts so that way the reservoir is nice and secure. Alright, good to go.
After you get everything secure, you get your 3 hoses put back into line. You're going to tighten your 2 bolts. You're going to go ahead and fill it up with some coolant and pay attention to the minimum and maximum line. Go ahead and run the truck, let it burp through the system, get all the air out of the line, and then make sure you just pay attention to your temperature, and you should be good to go and you'll be back on the road. Next morning, I had to come inside due to the wind and how cold it was. But nevertheless, I went ahead and topped off the reservoir with some new coolant, and I ran the truck for about 10 minutes with the heat on to let the system burp itself and get all the air out of the line, and then just kept filling it up as necessary. I made sure to pay attention to the minimum and maximum line, and I went ahead and put the coolant level right in the middle of the 2, so that way it was a happy medium. But everything seems to be running good, and the temperature is up to about 120 degrees at 725 RPMs for about 10 minutes. So everything looks like it's in great shape. I'm glad that you guys can come along with part 2 of installing the coolant reservoir overflow. And if you guys like this video and it was helpful, give it a big thumbs up. Please be sure to subscribe down below and follow us on our journeys out on the road and our adventures at home. Thanks guys, and take care.